Listen to a well-played sequence of chords. It evokes a specific, immediate feeling, maybe nostalgia, maybe dread. We rarely stop to ask why stacking a few specific notes together triggers an emotional response. But look inside the instrument. The arrangement of strings and pins is mathematical. The harmony you hear emerges from the physics of acoustics. Today, we are going to build the 4 foundational chords from scratch. You will learn how to shift their emotional states and link them together into a professional sequence. By learning the physical structure of these chords, you can begin to influence how a listener experiences tension and resolution. Step 1 is setting up our workspace. On a standard keyboard, we start by picking a home base. We'll use the note C, which we call the root. To build a chord on this root, we use a formula called stacking thirds. We take our root note, skip the next white key, select the one after that, skip the next, and pick the third. You are left holding notes 1, 3, and 5. Press those 3 keys together, and you've generated a foundational block triad. A common mistake here is counting the starting key itself as step number 1. Instead, you need to measure the distance by counting the physical steps upward from the root to the target key. This 1-3-5 spacing is the standard architecture for triads, underpinning the vast majority of Western songs. Now that we have the 1-3-5 blueprint, we can modify exact distances, measured in semitones, between these notes to change the chord's emotional character. This diagram maps our first shape, the major chord. Between our root C and our middle note E, there is a gap of 4 semitones. Between E and the top note G, there are 3. This specific ratio sounds stable and bright because it closely aligns with the mathematical proportions found in acoustic sound waves. If we adjust the stack by lowering that middle note a half step down to E flat, the formula flips to a 3-step gap followed by a 4-step gap. The chord becomes minor, creating a somber tone. We can drop the top note a half step as well. Now we have 2 consecutive 3-step gaps. This forms a diminished chord, producing a sense of instability. Returning to our major bass and raising the top note instead creates 2 4-step gaps. This augmented chord leaves the listener floating in ambiguity. By calculating exact semitone distances, you dictate the specific mood your listener experiences. Isolated chords hold a mood, but they don't tell a story. To build a narrative with a beginning, middle, and end, we organize them using functional harmony. In our sequence, the C major establishes a baseline of rest. Transitioning to A minor and F major acts as a preparation phase, leading into G major, which introduces tension. We can increase that tension by modifying the G chord into a G7. As highlighted by this high contrast line, adding an F note introduces a harsh interval between the B and the F, known as a tritone. This creates acoustic friction right before we resolve back to C. Classical music structures this tension and release strictly. Modern genres, particularly jazz and bossa nova, often stretch and prolong these tense intervals. A progression is a system designed to manage cognitive expectation, building pressure before finally releasing it. If you try playing this sequence by moving your entire hand up and down the keyboard for every new chord, the transitions will sound disjointed. Professional players avoid this using voice leading, a technique that minimizes the physical distance notes travel from one chord to the next. The primary rule is to identify any notes shared between 2 consecutive chords and keep the fingers holding them perfectly still. On the right side of this comparison, notice how the C key stays anchored when we move from C major to F major. The thumb remains in place. From there, the remaining fingers slide up 1 or 2 steps to reach their new positions. This approach hides the physical mechanics of playing, blending separate chord changes into a continuous voice. Listen to those 4 chords linked together now, played with precise voice leading. That cohesive sound is the result of 4 specific actions. You stacked intervals of thirds, calculated semitones to set the mood, built functional tension, and anchored your transitions with voice leading. Your next step is to apply this directly. Go to a keyboard and play this exact progression, but swap that opening C major for a C minor. Listen to how the entire narrative tone shifts. Musical mastery begins where the laws of acoustic physics meet your own emotional intention.